Okay, folks, now we're going to start into the story of buttons and rock and roll show buttons. And as you see, we have a big picture of the buttons, and we're going to show you some that have value, right? This is an original Beatles button, as you can see right here. This one's worth some money.
Goes back to the 60s. Yeah, it's in nice shape, $75.
Right.
The tour buttons and band buttons that weren't sold in stores, like
Right.
in the 60s, a lot of it was just sold at Woolworths
Right.
or Kresge's or whatever stores you went to. But then they issued, the band would issue fan club buttons and things like that. And also some of the early Beatles and other from the British invasion, the buttons that came from Britain are worth more than the ones from America.
Oh, yeah. So some of the other buttons it's worth, if I'll show you this one right here, Wings Over America. That was the tour of the 70s, sold by the Beatles. This was a later Beatle tour with the band and with Linda McCartney on there. And this was a rare George Harrison showed at the George Harrison show, which only did one show at Maple Leaf Gardens, and that was it. So this button's got to be worth something because it's limited in its edition. And then some of the other famous Beatles
You got a
buttons.
fan club, Hermits fan
That's
club
the
button.
Hermits fan club right there. What do you think that one's worth?
You do have to look at the edge just to make sure you're getting original buttons, right? Sometimes there'll be some trademarks or whatever.
Right.
Looks original. It's probably $50.
And then, of course, Paul McCartney, and then an
But
old
that's a new
Beatles number
McCartney.
one.
That's worth a couple of dollars, that one.
Because it was just on tour.
Yeah,
and
it's a
stuff
newer.
sold on that end. Okay, so some of the other things that are good. This is a really rare Beatle button because it's got like a little silver on it, and I'm not even sure what that one's worth.
It's actually a pinback. When they have a pin on like this, they call them pinbacks.
Right.
And, it's more a decorative thing for a woman to wear on her blouse or something like that, I guess. But it's, again, probably $50, something like that. I assume it's original.
Yeah.
It has facsimile autographs on the back.
This was a rare Christmas thing for Jimi Hendrix. I don't even know how I got it or where I found it.
I've
but
never seen one of those. I have no idea what it could be worth.
Very, very rare button on that end.
Well, it's actually a keychain. I don't know why you'd
it's a
want.
keychain?
Yeah, because this comes out to like that.
Oh, yeah.
Put your keys on, but
Looked like a Christmas ornament.
it looks kind of big for a keychain. I'm not sure it would last that long. It's better that it wasn't used for keys. It's still in great shape.
Right. So in this thing here, we'll just mention a few other buttons that are worth some money on tour.
This very view flicker button of Elvis would be worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah, because it
probably.
shows two different 3D
Images
pictures
of
of
Elvis,
that.
depending on how you look at it.
And then these four Beatle posters right up here,
Beetle buttons.
Beatle buttons. They're worth something
Yeah,
because
they're
they're
worth
worth
$30
right.
each.
And then if you look at the Monkies, these are monkey caps from the Monkies.
Okay.
They're rare, and then those other rare monkey buttons there are worth something.
Now,
And then-
back in the day, too, which we haven't shown any, but all these bands made cards.
oh yeah,
You get bubblegums. There's the Beatles cards. There's Monkees cards. There's Partridge Family cards. Certainly, any TV show had cards, but a few of the bands did as well. And then they've issued sets recently. They're worth nothing, but the old sets tend to be worth something.
Okay, well, let's flip to our next set of buttons. Okay, these buttons.
These are issued like fan clubs and VIPs.
That was the Paul McCartney tour a long time ago. So that set of buttons, they're really worth something in the collection because they were just put together by themselves. Right. And these are just like package buttons that
Us
you buy
Festival
on
will
show.
be good. That's a one-off. Canada Jam, that's a nice button from that.
There's an El Macombo one there. This was REM's free concert in Toronto on Yonge Street, which is a cool button. And then as you see later, these are like show buttons that they sold at the shows in groups, like you see Roger Water, Rush and stuff. They don't increase much, but if you're a button collector, that's what you look for, a lot of different rock and roll buttons. We'll click to our other button picture. See, these are the middle of other collect buttons. This one was a good one. As usual, the last show ever by Chum at the Maple Leaf Gardens. I was there for the last show. This is that other side of that Elvis thing that you were talking about. Right. And a couple of other interesting buttons. In here is like the Willie Nelson one or the Ringo Starr, but none of these buttons are worth a lot of money. But if you're a button collector for rock and roll, it's a good collection to have all the different buttons for the shows, and it goes well on a wall or in a. Some people.
A lot
do
of
it
people
as
take a
booklet.
cork board and just
Yeah.
stick them all to the cork board.
And they look great on a cork board. And the best ones that I've seen on it here would be, I guess, the Who one because that was a show poster, and then this other Who one and the Supertramp one. But the rest, they're just general posters of the shows. Anyway, we'll go, and I can show you a few other interesting things. Like this is a coin of ZZ Top, which is probably worth something that has the pictures of the three guys and then ZZ Top incorporated.
There's coins made now. A lot of so-called banana republics, little Caribbean nations will make a set of Beatles coins or Stones coins. So you can see all this stuff coming out, and it is actual currency often, or even stamps. There's stamps you can see. These are actually USA stamps of Elvis, but typically those things are made in such quantity they're never worth a lot of money. Like the Elvis stamps, there's a full sheet.
I actually
and they're
have
not
some
worth that much.
Beatles stamps. We'll show you about some Beatles, but the funny part about the Beatles stamps, they were made in African countries. So the African countries made a Beatle sell stamps.
They all did that just to create currency for the country.
Right. And other good buttons is like, the Beach Boys with the surfboard, ELO if it's a little spy, Elton John, he likes his big E
Now, some of those are
sign.
keychains as
Yeah,
well.
they're all keychains, Rush. ZZ Top does the Z and, Victory
Then you
Tour.
got the bottle openers.
Yeah, really good bottle openers, which Santana made a lot of good bottle openers. And so did a few other ones. This is a good bottle opener, Fleetwood Mac. So there's different things. Santana always made a good pin set. So this is general history of there's a lot of rock and roll show buttons, and people like to collect buttons in general, and rock and roll collectors of buttons is pretty popular.
It was back in the day, not so much now, but they were very popular back 60s, 70s. People used to wear buttons on their coats and stuff, but you don't see it as much anymore.
No.
Now, we have art, too, so this is something that you don't see that often, but album art. This is the original art for an extended play single that the Teenage Head put out. Let's Go to Hawaii, and they're wearing the Hawaiian shirts, and it's signed by
graphics,
the
too.
graphics are great. Unfortunately, the painting needs a little bit of restoration. It's starting to flake off slightly, and it was written to a woman who ran their office for them, one named Eva. I ended up buying this off of her, but interestingly enough, it's signed by the two deceased members, Frankie Venom, who was really the face of the band and the lead singer, and Gordy Lewis, who just died a few weeks ago, was the main guitarist. And so that's actual, and you can get some album art, like if you have the original art from a Led Zeppelin 3 or something, it could be worth $1 million, who knows. Right. This is actually art for the disc. This is an Alice Cooper, just the CD they're making, and this is these, for the print shops, they would make different color discs of the art to put on the disc. Right. And so those have a collectible value. This is a book cover, of all things, and sticks. So people don't even have books anymore, never mind covers. So, but you'd go to high school and you'd put this on your textbook and you'd have a picture of Styx, but they did all the bands. One thing that's interesting, this is just to show you these one-off type of posters that came up. This was originally going to be called the Impeachment Ball. It was a jazz and rock music festival. They changed it to Victory because Nixon had just been impeached, and it's sponsored by the benefit concert published by the American War Resisters of Canada. This was the Draft Dodgers in the early days.
This was a 60s poster made out for a
the
concert.
Early 70s, this one.
Help the Draft Dodgers.
Yes, and fight the Vietnam War and get publicity. A lot of Draft Dodgers ended up in Vancouver and Toronto, and we have a lot of interesting things that came from them. These are very interesting, and there's a lot of these around, but if you find them, they're always worth a lot of money. These are original set lists that the bands would have. And it's funny because you'll, when you read it, this is from a show in Hamilton. I actually put the ticket with it. So this will be taped by the drummer's kit. Yeah, sometimes maybe on a wall by a mic where they can look down at an amp or something and see the songs. But they use nicknames for the songs, like they have Fully here for Fully Completely. you sort of, when you're going through what song's that, now there is a site called FM Setlist. You go on and see every set list any band's ever played in history. But you could go and see what each song is, and sometimes they'll change one up, but very rarely. This is another Tragically Hip set list from Cleveland. And these were usually written by Gord Downey, the leader of the band, and they're quite valuable. Obviously, he's deceased. It's made them worth even more money, tragically dying of cancer. But if you get these, you have this from a Rolling Stones, or if you ever had I don't even know if the Beatles had them, something like that from back in the day, or a Led Zeppelin one, they could be worth $50,000, $60,000. This is a very unusual piece.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd want these.
Yeah, I know.
Michael Jackson air fresheners, and Wolf just said to me, let's open one. I said, no, we did, and it's very bad. They have not aged well, these. But anyways, it's just a cardboard. This is a point-of-sale piece, and you would hang this in the store wall, and people come up and say, I need one of those, 25 cents. And
right. Put an air freshener in your
I've
car
never
with
seen
Michael
them
Jackson.
anywhere else. I don't think they sold very well. I don't know if it's a prototype. Sometimes it's something like, let's try this, and they find out it's a bad idea, and there's no more made.
Right.
I don't think this, like, we were trying to sell these for 25 each, and you can see we did sell a few, but we'd probably sell the whole thing for $500 just to get rid of it. It's not worth a fortune.
Cool.
But that's a lot of just oddball. There's oddball stuff coming out all the time. Another we talked about, we have some equipment signed by the bands. Drum heads are often signed. I have a tambourine that was used by The Who, signed by Daltrey. Guitars, if you get a used guitar that's signed, you're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars for those, if not millions. Because Eric Clapton has sold off, I think, and he's one of the greatest guitarists, or ranked perhaps the greatest guitarist of all time. And all his guitars were going for $1 million plus.
One of my other favorite things is, this is my favorite button for John Lennon, because it says, John Lennon for President, 1980. And the reason they put this up is John Lennon was trying to get status to stay in America, and Nixon was playing dirtball on him to try to get him kicked out of the country. And a lot of famous people helped stick up and sign letters to keep Lennon in America. And after they won the right to keep Lennon in America, they said he should be president. So it was a really good funky button. And I think that's about it. I have to check what's in that box.
I'm sure we'll keep coming up with more stuff, and particularly... Or let us know if you've got some oddball rock items that we haven't talked about. We'd love to hear about them.
Other good ones are like these keychains that are good pictures of Genesis and the band, and they're just all plastic, but they have good pictures of the bands. Like this is Fleetwood Mac, Aerosmith, the typical Tommy one.
Those are probably worth $10 to $15. People don't really care about them too much, but they look nice. They're a neat collectible, and of course, like Wolf and I, we collect from every band, but most people would just be collecting their favorite band.
Right.
They're not like us crazy where they have 500 or something. They got 15 Santana buttons, and they're happy with that. But we continue to have to buy for everything. So
see, these are mainly the metal posters.
Metal buttons.
Metal buttons, and outside here are all the plastic keychains. And like the good one here is the mushroom button from the Allman Brothers, and Santana made some good buttons and guitars. So the metal ones are worth more than the plastic ones, but
some are done like guitar picks.
Yeah, but that was just the general variety of buttons to show in.
And they'll still sell. You'll see at some of the shows they're still selling this.
Yeah, which surprises me that they still sell them, but they do. So this is a rare Elvis Presley button from the 50s.
Yeah, it's a technology that they had back in the day called VeryView, company VeryView, and it's licensed, says right on the back, copyright 1956, Elvis Presley Enterprises. And it would show a couple images of the Beatles or Elvis. Sometimes the Beatles one would show a picture of Paul, and then it would say, I love Paul, or things like that.
Right.
And this company was around through the 60s. These are definitely original. It's in beautiful condition, this one. It's probably worth $100 or a little more, being a real early Elvis collectible. You can see these other buttons you got. These are after his death. They put these remembrance buttons out, but they're still collectible. They did come out in 77. And, but those VeryViews, people like those. It's not something you see anymore. Now we have holograms and things like that, but I guess that was the technology back in the day.
And as you can see, this is the Allman Brothers with the mushroom. This is the typical button that Fleetwood Mac fans want. Now, these were weird. They were, I think, in
Coins.
cereals.
No, they were in chips.
Chips, that's right.
Potato chips and
So
something else.
You would get these in your
Maybe
little
tea.
chip bags to see the Monkees, which we'll show you a bigger one.
And
but
they're
it's a
quite
rare,
collectible.
and
Like
they're
the
hard
full
to
set's
find.
probably worth $300-400.
Yeah, and I have 2 of these sets, but they were hard to find. And this is a good Monkey button of the collections is worth. And these 2 buttons are worth something because it came out with the Who by Numbers tour that was sold on their tour. And this one, the reason I like this one, it says, I was there for the Who, 1982.
Yeah.
Of December 16th, 17th. So it was the last supposedly Who tour.
Yes, last shows ever.
Which we thought, and it was actually broadcast, and Chum made this button. So it's a
global broadcast.
global event button, too. So it was good. And they're worth more money because of the significance of this event that happened. Same with the Monkey stuff. And then, of course, you get some good keychains. Like that's the U2 keychain. And this, of course, is a rare one because it's Elton John and Billy Joe as a keychain, which they would never do again anymore. So
You must have spent $500 at that show on merchandise. You seem to have every collectible from that tour.
Yep. And then I bought a lot of these package tours. The one of these package tours that will sell well is the Rush one I have over here because there's no more Rush buttons or no more Rush tours coming out. So I would suspect that this tour collection would
They're
be
best
worth
kept
something.
like that on the original backing board if you
Right.
if you want to resell them. If you're going to display them, you do whatever you want. But if somebody wants to buy this Roger Waters one, they just want the button. They want them on the original.
Same like with this
package.
Aerosmith and Shania Twain and Katy Perry, Bruce Springsteen. So fans who collect show buttons, rock is a good way to collect if you're into a button collector because there's so much rock and roll buttons going on, both on tour and sold in the stores. Right. So that's the end of our
All right, that's great.
button display. So as we close down this show on the value of buttons and stuff, we're going to show you some other things as patches, guitar picks, and rock and roll money that's given out at shows. They have nominal value of $20 to $30, but we thought we'd show you them because they're part of the rock and roll collection. If you want to get in touch with us, check us out at rockandrollwolf.com or Glory Days Collectibles, and we can answer your questions or evaluate some of your rock collections. Hey Glenn,
Wolf, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I brought you a whole bunch of more rock and roll stuff to show you. And as I told you before, when you have over 10,000 rock and roll items, this is the place, Glory Day Collectibles, that you bring your stuff to find out what it's worth, whether it's passes, tickets, t-shirts, programs, posters, and other rock and roll memorabilia. Glenn's group, they analyze it. They tell you whether it's a real autograph, a fake autograph, a good poster, a good program, or whether they're copies.
If I'll get lucky, I'll find a joint in this pocket. No, nothing. Too bad. It's always good. You never know when you find drugs from one of the roadies.